Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out. I'd also like to thank Margaret Code, director of the Art Bar, for inviting me to read these poems in this particular format, and Rosa and the other members of the Art Bar team for making this happen altogether. I'm going to be reading a book from poems from my book, Home Was Elsewhere, published in 2017 by Quattro Books. And my second book is by Aeola's House, published by Aeola's House, and it's called The Heart of All Music, Ekphrastic and Ecstatic Poems. And I have another book out, which will be coming out in August, called The Seasons of Life, The Poems of Hermann Hesse, in translation from the German with a colleague of mine, Max Fischer. But getting back to the poems at hand, I'm going to be reading completely from Home Was Elsewhere. Some of the poems are of a very personal nature, my personal relationships, and because this volume is collected poems with new poems, some of the collected poems are of an erotic nature, and if you can't imagine when you hear the poems this face, picture a younger guy. I write about nature, I write about spiritual experiences, and I write about writing. Most of the poems are momentary, that is, they take place in a moment of experience. And I hope you enjoy the poems as much as I'm going to enjoy reading them for you. The first poem is called No Consolation. There are still wild horses in Colorado with shaggy coats the color of earth, and there are still hairy lavender flowers with hearts of gold closed against the rain. You are still in Colorado, probably trying too hard and crying, like the day I hugged you and said, it's like hugging the whole earth. Our love affair did not go well. We could not console each other, Janet. Tonight, I'm hugging myself in a car in Caledon, Ontario, smoking, watching the stars, watching the milkweed sway in the half moonlight, letting the wind soothe me. There is no consolation, Janet, not even hugging the whole earth. It's getting early now. My cigarette is finished. The birds are beginning to cheer themselves up. I'm going to get some sleep. Good morning, Janet. New. You are beautiful, but crumpled. Behind you is window, is wind, rain in maples. Deep in your eyes is lightning. Your mind is feathers. Tickle me. It is not for me to say more than, I am here. Wrangler 2 Barbecue. I am eating ribs for the pleasure of using teeth to rip flesh from bone. The waitress is a honey blonde child who looks perfect in jeans, moves quickly, tells me she loves ribs, snow in the mountains, and brings me lots of coffee. When she reads this, she says, I'm not a child. Oh, thank you. After. There are no mountains this morning, and there is no sky, only snowflakes falling out of luminous gray onto the close few houses and trees framed in the picture window, half filled with fronds of papyrus behind the blue eyes of you, having coffee in my kimono. Intermezzo 1. The Garden of Joys and Sorrows. In Sofia Gubaidulina's trio, The Garden of Joys and Sorrows, the players spin solo threads, the flute lyrical in a pastoral way, but insistent and insinuating, the harp brittle, the viola squeaking as if rusted. The tempo increases, solo voices slide into unison like the scurry of panicking creatures. The voice of the viola appeals for calm. The flute relaxes into lyrical meanderings, but the harp remains in distress, uttering a noisy jangle. A reassuring rhythm like donkey trot clicking over cobbled surface almost soothes before moments of turmoil and rising panic prevail, then subside. The density of solo textures dissolves into unison and harmony and the clarity of silence. From that silence, a 7-note motif like a bugler's reveille arises, and we are in an awakened state. The viola speaks these words from the diary of Francisco Tanzer. All borders are like a line drawn with a stick of wood or the heel of a shoe in the sand. All this is artificial. Tomorrow we play another game. The next poem is called Feeling the Cold. Feeling the cold. Waking with you in the soft bed made up on 2 tatami mats, your room unheated, and the windows open to the mountain air, I imagine we are in the mountains, on Marpa Point, making breakfast tea. I feel my fingers pick twigs for the fire, sweep the gray sands ceremoniously into patterns, and set the cold, clanking metal teapot on the rocks to boil. Later in your kitchen, I do in fact boil water in a copper kettle, carefully set the table for us, and enjoy the smell of wood smoke in the Lapsang Souchong tea. Then, driving to work, we stop at a service station to fix your tire. I pry the frosty hubcap loose. I hear it fall clanking on the cement, and I begin to feel my vision of making tea on Marpa Point is coming true, and I am suddenly very happy. The next poem is called Nobody Feeds the Rat. Death hung on my lover's neck like a blessing thread, flew through folds of her skin like a sparrow, burned in overworked flesh like a midnight candle, sat in her gentle smiles like a pet white rat, grew in the cage of eyes like a plan to marry. Black spruce. Black spruce I'll start again. Black spruce. Black spruce sway in the wind. I turn to them for solace because they never complain. White paper consoles me. On its surface, words appear like cricket chirps. When I think of your goodness, I burn and become restless. Meanwhile, what to do? When we are together, there is such a flowing. Then, what to do? I want you to understand, star-crossed lovers are the only kind. Love is out of this world. Invocation. Taos Mountain, black-crowned peak, lordly ornament of broad-shouldered hills, hold the clarity of distance around each green leaf of this cottonwood tree, this gallant pinto mare in her fold, sporting in the meadow after supper, these 2 small boys busy at making war. This troop of skunks cantering down the road, plumes elegantly aloft in the pinon-scented air. Taos Mountain cast a cold eye on alibis and accusations dissolving in the sunlight into hairy orange clouds that float above this immense green arena where everything is seen and every vision is pain until it melts into the sacred blue lake hidden in the hollow of your ankle. Now the next poem which I have to look for is further down into the book. It's called Green Devotion. Green Devotion. Green Devotion. Sheer mist and cloud gown with light, my mountain, whose beloved shape lingers in the freezing air, sharp as foreknowledge. A small wind stirs the flame-like junipers. Fine naked twigs of dormant trees crackle like black lightning torn from the earth. 2 yellow candle stumps set in silver warm themselves in the sunlight on the table. Water in a crystal vase is drawn up the neck in droplets towards the petals of carnation, some transparent, some dying at the edges. In a corner of the room, the stand of huge papyrus devours buckets of water and shows its green devotion to the sun. And now I'm looking for a poem called The Devil's Thumb. And here it is. The Devil's Thumb. The foothills of the Rockies near El Dorado Springs project a spur they call the Devil's Thumb, an ode in stone to stubbornness of those who make their own way, like Lucifer, squirted by God into the hot womb of earth and aborted with the Rockies X million years ago, still poking his thumb up victory sign into heaven's eye. I also think that spur of rock is Buddha, whipped into shape by the wind of his own desires to hover as the human link between earth and heaven. He sits above the city among pines, winds swept by the furious bliss of his breathing into attitudes of dancers. He breathes in pollution, the pain of rock stars who murder their wives, of women who want babies and out of doubt abort them. His outbreath fills the valley with wave after wave of warriors dancing over the hills like pines that repose on the softness of sandstone peaks after a long march through canyons of darkness and light. So we're going to change the mood slightly and go on to poems that are about poems. And I'm going to have a little drink because my throat is getting dry. Good, thank you. Poem to Paper and Pen. Paper, white space hole. The table underneath is not really there. The table's so brown and so thingy. Pen, black space blood blows through it. My body flutters like a flag. Poem, how refreshing to be a signature in space. Play. Poem is play on lungs. Flower is play on light. Mushroom is play on darkness. Snake is play on mouse. Lipstick is play on space. Fire is play on mountain. Wind is play on feather. Longing is play on moon. Composed at the window of the Bay Avenue Co-op. The fully empty, beautiful, vanishing day with its sunshine and trees, kids, dogs, and nicely dressed people in their clever cars shining in the sun. babies and birds chirping their preferences, and even if no one is there to tell you what to do with yourself, you could go on with your breathing. Try moving your fingers in a rhythm over something. Invite a peaceful feeling, like a Buddha, sitting in stillness, like rock in sand, more so. Click of rain now and thunder. Other sounds are of children thumping, and their voices speaking as they do, loud, yelling everything and shrill. It is good to wear yellow in a brightly lit room on Friday at 5, darkening during an autumn thunder shower. Yellow, yellow. Creative yellow, yellow with subtlety, soft yellow, solid yellow, fascinating yellow. Yellow with life inside. Yellow, it moves with candor. Yellow, it writhes, softly shaded yellow. Scarred yellow, parallel yellow, open-mouthed yellow. Yellow with comparison, regular yellow, perpendicular yellow, uninteresting yellow, dirty yellow, equally yellow. Carolyn's laughter. Carolyn's laughter is jackhammer yammer, is Mack truck grinding gears, is automatic pistol, is kamikaze bumblebee, is deep throat Cuisinart, is prison riot, is dream of flying, is overdrive, is electric chair in reverse, is mirthless, is ironclad contract, is dispossessed, is arbitrary, is accurate, is not long-winded or polite, rides roughshod, plays the system, plays for keeps, is methodical, patient, ruthless, is criminal, doomed, trigger-happy. Carolyn's laughter is barbed wire. Quite possibly, in the hidden valley behind it, is a pond, rich with lily pads, and yellow-bellied bullfrogs where cows come down to drink. Now I'm looking for a poem that's called Formal Air, and here it is. It's a kind of a sonnet, actually. A formal air. Yesterday is under snow, white entombs the grass below. The pine-ridged mountain view is lost. I've watched the fragile snowflakes tossed by burdened junipers persist in their approach. The branches twist and take the brunt. The robins hide, sparrows shiver. We stay inside. The chairs are stiff, the tables bare. The plants assume a formal air. Of course the sun will shine, we hope, and give our lives a larger scope. Perhaps it will. It might be clever to think the snow will fall forever. This poem called The Loss was written as the dusk began to deepen at Atlantic Coast Beach. It's called The Loss, I guess, because the sound of the waves and the feeling was just about the day is over and the day is lost and everything we did is lost. And so it's not necessarily a depressing poem, but it's about the ordinary experience that we experience every day of loss. But it's concentrated, and here we are. The loss. The loss. The loss. Primordial cricket pulse between the silences. The loss. The booming pulse. The waves rolling at star rise. The loss of birds. Their cries. Footprints underwater. Wind in the silence. Lights in the bay. The warmth of sunburned skin hidden from wind. Rapid footsteps. the flies, the cool wind, the haste, the diminished street, the cheap lights, the colors of neon, fence, automobile, the dirt, the insane dreams, the homes, the people making visits, their games, the unreal light, the homes, the fires, the loss, the consolations, lovemaking, sleep, a snack, cigarettes, a sigh, the uneasy trip to the toilet, the comfort of possessions, the loss, the sleep, the pretenses, the hope. And I'm going to end with a short poem that's made up of four linked haiku. Her. Trembling aspen hairs, quick tail of squirrel, move in her. A slight wind, red tulips touch, and again touch. The world is big enough to be my lover. She forgets me. Tomorrow again, I'll see her everywhere, playing with distances. Well, everybody, thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you in real life one of these days. In the meantime, stay safe.